Doesn't it suck when a show you were watching goes off the air and you're left with having nothing to watch and nothing to look forward to week? That just happened with me with Primal. What's rockin' my rock and rollers? Today we're going to be discussing the Season 3 finale of Primal. Let's jump right into it. I already did multiple videos on my channel of Season 3 so far, so I won't recap the whole thing, but the last episode I talked about was Episode 7, so I'll briefly go over Episodes 8 and 9 here before the finale, so let's get started. Episode 8, there's not really much that happened in terms of like enough to talk about. Just a bunch of fighting. Episode 7 ended with Spear walking into this volcanic deserted area and meeting these primitive tribal people. Episode 8 was basically about how this tribe puts on a tournament where someone they choose has to fight people from the tribe and other tribes as well. Whoever wins the fight gets to wear this crown and drink this black goo substance. I believe this is the same black goo from that episode of the first season where Spear fought that gorilla with the Triceratops skull. As the episode progresses, you see Spear beating more and more enemies and getting more of that black goo. That's essentially all that happened in Episode 8. Episode 9 was about the same in terms of we still see Spear fighting more and more enemies and drinking more of that black goo. But this time we finally get to see what that goo is doing to him. We see him get his original eye color back and his skin turns from that dead green look he's had because he's been a zombie to more of his natural normal color. The goo is basically regenerating him, so to speak. The other major thing that happened in this episode is that Mira finally gives birth to her and Spear's child, which turns out to be a daughter. While this is happening, keep in mind Spear is still miles away in that area and hasn't seen the child or has no idea that the child is even born. He becomes more and more of his normal self as the episode progresses, and he starts remembering that Mira was carrying a little person inside of her, which he remembers and decides to draw on the cave walls. He tames one of the pterodactyls that one of his opponents rode in on. He beat the opponent and stole his ride basically, and flies back home. When he arrives, he notices the child and doesn't know how to act, so he leaves. Mira wakes up and sees the pterodactyl flying off in the distance and goes to get some scrolls to find out where he's heading to. She looks and sees like this mountain, drawing, and decides to get the others together to go find him. Back at the Volcano Tribe people, Spear continues fighting, but this time during the fights he's having visions of the baby that's interrupting his fighting and distracting him. During one of the fights, he notices a totem-looking thing on one of the enemy's staff. He defeats the enemy and takes that, and he also defeats another enemy and has like long red hair. He cuts some of the hair off and decides to combine the totem with the hair to make like a little toy for his daughter to give to her when he meets her. He runs back to the cave and the tribal leader walks in and tries to give Spear a tribal woman. Spear yells in her face, which is classic Spear, and runs to the pterodactyl and flies away to find Mira and the others. The episode ends on a cliffhanger where we see Mira, Fang, and the baby T-Rexes walking through the jungle. There's this nice moment where one of the baby T-Rexes has the baby like on its back, and the other Rex like grabs the baby by the diaper, throws her onto his back, and the other T-Rex looks around and like roars at him like sibling brotherly love, which is kind of touching to see. The next scene is basically Fang and Mira hear something in the distance, and all of a sudden this possessed bear or wolf creature, appears and starts brutally attacking Fang and trying to get the others as well. The babies try to jump in to help Fang, but she won't let them, and that's basically how the episode ends. It's a cliffhanger. Now that the recap for episodes 8 and 9 are done, let's get into the finale. The finale opens with Spear flying on the pterodactyl trying to find Mira and the others. He lands and sees foot tracks and follows them. He arrives at the spot where the last episode ended with the fight between Fang and the creature. There's blood everywhere and Spear looks worried and he notices baby footprints on the ground and decides to follow them. He follows them and finds the wolf impaled on a large tree branch. We get a brief flashback where it showed that during the fight, Fang got the upper hand and smacked the wolf with her tail and impaled him on the branch. Spear continues looking around where he hears something in the background. He walks forward towards the noise and finds the group recovering from their wounds. Mira notices him and runs over to him, and she notices that he looks more like his normal self. This was great visual storytelling because there's no dialogue in this scene or this whole show basically. Mira looks at his head where his brain was exposed earlier last time she saw him, and looks at his mouth where everything looks to be like normal and healthy now. She hugs him, and man, this moment was wholesome. Seeing Spear finally get back to being human, or at least closer to human than what he was, and finally reuniting with Mira was just so awesome to see. It gets even better when the baby T-Rexes run over and push Mira out of the way and as they want their turn with Spear. The moment gets even better because now Spear finally gets to meet his daughter face to face for the first time, and man, like I said earlier, so much wholesomeness. The child looks at Spear with those big cute eyes, and Spear holds up his skull hand and immediately freaks out like, oh my god, I don't want to freak the kid out, and then holds up his normal left hand to try to wave at her. The baby stares and then puts her hand against Spear's, creating like the father-daughter bond, first contact between father and daughter. I want to take a moment to discuss how heartfelt this scene is. We've spent the whole season watching Spear lose himself, slowly gaining his true self back, while also knowing he'll have to meet his daughter eventually. And to finally see this moment after all that build up and what Spear has gone through is just a fantastic payoff. The next moment is just as wholesome because Fang is seriously wounded and Spear walks up to her and places his hand on her nose. She smells it, recognizes it, and tries to get up, but Spear stops her and embraces her, and again, another wholesome moment. These two have been through so much together, and now after being separated for the longest time, they're finally reunited. The moment doesn't last long as everyone in the group is shot with these tranquilizer darts, so to speak, and the next scene, Spear wakes up back in the tribal people's coliseum. I guess they didn't appreciate Spear leaving them and decided to follow them to get him back. Spear looks up and sees the tribal leader holding his daughter and tries to get her, but he realizes he's chained to the ground. He looks in front of him where Fang, the baby Rexes, and Mira are lying unconscious. He notices that the tribal people are making all of them drink that same black goo. When all this happens, they all start to mutate. First, the baby Rexes mutate and become these essentially large green dinosaurs that are stronger now. Mira mutates into this giant gray-green creature, and lastly, Fang mutates into this awesome looking T-Rex with a bunch of spikes coming out of her back. Her color scheme reminded me of that old Imaginext T-Rex toy from back in the day. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but Imaginext was this toy company that had, or this toy line about these dinosaurs. I remember specifically that toy, that T-Rex, had a blue and red color scheme similar to Fang's design, and her design looks very similar to that. I don't know if that was intentional or if the people who designed this knew about that toy line, but it was such a nice callback for me personally because I love that toy line and especially love that T-Rex as a kid, so it was just such a nice callback to my childhood. Obviously, the tribal people want Spear to fight and win the fight, but of course Spear doesn't want to because these are his family. So he tries his best to beat them, quote unquote, without hurting them. There's one great scene where Fang tries to kill her babies and Spear jumps in front of her like, no, like these are your youngins, don't fight them, don't hurt them, and she just smacks him out of the way. While this is happening, the volcano erupts and the ground begins breaking apart with lava rising up everywhere. Because of the ground breaking, the tribal leader on top of the mountain falls and drops the baby, and Spear jumps to save her, and he does. This was such a nice moment because Spear is now finally holding his daughter for the first time just after saving her, and looks into her eyes as she looks at him. So good. The next scene is Mira jumps and tries to get Spear, and Spear, while holding the baby, steps back, and there's this scary / awesome moment where she claws at them, and she just briefly scratches the baby's forehead, and the baby starts crying loudly. Mira hears this and freezes, recognizing that the child's scream is like it's hers, is her baby, and she snaps out of the trance and she mutates back into her former self and reunites with Spear and their daughter. Such an awesome moment. During this, Spear notices a spear that's falling into lava. He picks it up and notices that there's lava on the tip of the spear. He stabs and pokes one of the baby Rexes with it, and the shock of the hot lava makes them go back to their normal selves. He does that with the other one, and voila, both of them are back to normal and they embrace each other with that sibling bond again. Spear tries to do this with Fang, but it doesn't work since she's bigger. He keeps trying and eventually backs up onto a cliff and falls, and then Fang's eyes start to turn normal, and we see Spear fall, and he stops, he looks up, and Fang has grabbed him and throws him up over her like her shoulders are back, and then we get this awesome fucking shot of Spear on top of Fang like we've seen many times before on the show. Look how awesome this shot is though, the lava in the background, everything these two have been through together, especially this season with being separated, and now they're finally back, one badass team again, so fucking good. The team then regroups and runs back home away from the danger. The next scene is arguably the best ending we could have hoped for. Spear wakes up in his bed back home, looks over and sees his daughter sleeping. There's this nice moment where he puts the blanket over her to keep her warm. And he looks at his skull hand and he looks sad because he realizes that part of him will never, that this part of him, his hand, will never fully get back to normal. Maybe it will in the future, I don't know if there's going to be another season or not, but as of right now, there's no renewal, so it looks like Spear might be stuck with that hand forever, unfortunately. He walks over to the other house where Fang and the baby Rexes are sleeping, and he looks at the cave paintings he did previously with the mud and decides to add one more. He gets the mud and makes one last painting showing the whole gang, Mira, their daughter, Fang, the two baby Rexes, and himself. He looks at it with a big smile on his face, showing that he finally found his people and his family and his home at last. He looks over and sees Fang sleeping, walks over to her, and decides to sleep on her tail like they did earlier in the show with seasons 1 and 2. Then everyone starts piling on. First the baby Rexes walk over and join the cuddle, then Mira and the baby join in, and we get this cute little moment where the baby climbs on top of everyone and gets to the top and starts sleeping in this dangling position. It's so cute and funny. The whole time this is happening, Fang has had her eyes open watching everyone kind of regroup and start join the cuddle, and once everyone is in, she closes her eye basically saying, "Everyone's safe now, I can sleep peacefully." The ending scene is probably the single most emotional shot of the whole show in my opinion. You see the baby Rexes all grown up, and one of them is being ridden by Spear and Mira's daughter, who's also grown up. Not fully grown up, she looks around like 10 to 15, but she's still a child. Spear and Mira walk up to her and look like proud parents, and then we get the single most emotional shot of the whole show. This frame, right here. The grown-up daughter riding one of the grown-up baby T-Rexes, Fang and the other grown baby T-Rex on the right, while Spear and Mira are in the middle looking like proud parents. This is the best shot to end the show on, or the series if it doesn't get renewed. Everything about this shot is just perfect. Not just being the payoff to this season, but when you look back at all the way from the very first episode of season 1, all this shit that this group has gone through, the tease at the end of season 2 with this shot, and now all the stuff they've gone through with season 3. This single shot perfectly sums up everything that the show has been about, family and finding your tribe. Spear and Fang started out as enemies trying to kill each other, and since then they've met Mira. Fang found love and sadly lost it, but gained children in the process, and now Spear and Mira have a daughter. So perfect, man, so fucking perfect. This season was a mixed bag at the start in my opinion. I didn't know the direction they were going in with Spear dying at the end of season 2, but I trusted Genndy or Genndy, however it's pronounced, or I think it's Genndy, sorry if I mispronounce it, but I'm glad I trusted him. This season was a roller coaster of emotion and anticipation because you knew a payoff like this was coming. I don't know if there's going to be a season 4. There hasn't been any official word yet if the show's been renewed, but granted, this season just ended, so it could come in a matter of months. Keep in mind, season 2 was almost 4 years ago, so they still have time to renew it if they decide to. I know Genndy has talked about turning Primal into an anthology series, and that was his plan after season 2 before he had the idea of what to do with Spear with season 3. And honestly, I think turning it into an anthology series going forward would be the best option. I love the show, but more importantly, I love the world that they have created over the past 3 seasons with the show. This world has so much potential for storytelling. The only problem I can see them having is creating new characters that can rival Spear and the others. Not replace them, we don't want that, but I want characters that are on at least the same level as the ones we've come to know and love over the past 3 seasons. Could they continue Spear and Fang's story? Maybe, if they come up with a good story, but honestly, after seeing this ending, I don't want them to. This ending was such a brilliant and poetic ending to Spear and Fang's journey that I don't want them to ruin it. Maybe they can switch it up into an anthology show, you know, take a break from Spear and Fang for a few seasons, create more new memorable characters, we follow them for a few seasons, and then maybe the new characters in Spear and Fang have to team up for some, you know, badass finale. That could be cool. As of right now though, I think it would be best for Spear and Fang's journey to end here with this amazing and emotion-filled season, but more importantly, this poetic and emotion-filled shot.